Hey, Nicole Norwood here for some tea time. And today I thought we'd talk a little bit about the writer-executive relationship, which I think historically has been a very fraught relationship and looked at as adversarial, as, a writer who is creating this world and an executive who is there to pull it apart or tear it down or constantly question it. And I think obviously it's not really productive when you have people who feel like they're working at cross purposes. Ideally, you want to feel like you're on the same team and that you're all working towards the same goal, which is a successful show. Um, and yes, oftentimes people have different ideas about how to get there um, or what that really means on a specific project, but I do think there are things we can do on both the writer and the executive side to create a good, solid relationship and foundation. And the most important part of that is really building trust. So when it does come to hard conversations, you're both listening with an open mind because you know that other person has your best interests at heart. So if it is your studio or network executive, it's someone who wants your show to succeed, wants it to do well once it launches, wants um, the rest of the company to support the show, whether that's getting the publicity department excited about your show. So you get a great trailer or you get some added PR. There is so much going on behind the scenes that I think it's important to keep in mind on both sides. So I'll talk briefly about the executive side first. And as a writer, I think it's important to recognize that most executives are working on many, many projects at once. It's not just your project. So uh, in development, they could have multi 10, 20, 30 projects that they're working on at the same time. In series, they might have 7 series they're overseeing. They might have, you know, 20, 40 feature scripts in development. So I think it is important to recognize that they are not here. Their job is not just to focus on you and how to make your life difficult. They really are juggling a lot of balls, and a lot of demands are being placed on them from all different directions. So not only are they dealing with the creative, which in most cases is the best part of the job, but they're dealing with all of the machinery behind it. So whether that is business affairs who is coming to them about a deal, or production who is having issues with the costs of what you're creating, whether it is publicity and PR who maybe they're trying to get on board with your show, or maybe they're trying to sell that show up the ladder to their bosses and say, I'm working on this thing that's really fantastic and you really need to get on board, and I want you to really love it and be invested in this writer is so talented. Just know that they are not sitting there all day, with a red pen just trying to rip your script apart. They're really not. And they are not only talking to you and hopefully giving you some helpful suggestions, but they are also managing this whole machine behind the scenes and trying to marshal the troops to um, get on board and excited and up to speed on your project and what you're doing. Similarly, on the writer side, I think, executives don't always understand all of the demands placed on writers uh, on the production side. So, you as a showrunner may have, 100 people coming to you all day long asking you to approve wardrobe or set design, or you have to be in a casting session for hours to find the right person. There are so many demands on you as the creator and decisions that you'll need to make. You're going to have moments where you are stretched thin and frazzled And if you put out a script and you feel like the notes blow up what you spent so much time doing, it can be very frustrating. And I think it's important for executives to recognize that as well, that this is, a big job on both sides of the table, and having some respect for the process on both sides goes a long way. Unfortunately, some people have had bad experiences, bad notes, um, endless notes, which I know is particularly irritating when you've turned in a 12-page outline and you're getting 2 hours worth of feedback. I don't think that's productive. If there are bigger issues, identify the bigger issues, talk about ways you might address them, and then let the writer go to work and do that. It's so important to recognize that, we all have a certain threshold for being able to, I think, onboard and take in that kind of feedback. And I think by the time you're kind of into your second hour of stuff, it becomes harder to do it with a smile and engage and really onboard the notes in the way that maybe you'd like to. It just becomes overwhelming. It becomes a lot. So I think as an executive, please be conscious, try and be really focused, trying to be as direct as possible. Maybe there are cases where you need to have specific suggestions. Maybe there are other cases where you just need to say, hey, this isn't quite working, but try to come to it as a problem solver, not someone who's just going to tear it down. Now, you certainly don't need to tell the writers what to write, but don't just come and poke holes in the dam. Come and say, this wasn't working, but maybe something like this, and let the writer do it better, because obviously as executives, we're not writers, and we each have our own skill set, and both really do bring something to the table if you let it. As a writer, I'm sure many of you have heard, but it bears repeating. Even if you hate a note, or if you don't know the answer to a question, just say, I'll think about it. It's the best phrase you can use as a writer. It pacifies the executive and it allows you to move on to the next thing. Now, if you absolutely are going to refuse, I personally would rather someone be honest and upfront and say, like, that's a terrible note, I don't get it at all. And then you can figure out where you need to go. But if it's just something you don't have the answer to, or in that moment, maybe you're just frustrated by something and you need to go back and you need to think about it, say that. Say, like, I need a minute, we'll take it back to the room, or, let me go back through it and think about it. It will buy you so much goodwill and grace just to let people know, like, okay, I hear you, and I'm going to take that on board. Even if you're not sometimes, honestly, just those words are like magic. So all things to think about in the writer-executive relationship. Of course, there's so much more nuance, and the more you do it, the more you learn what to do, what not to do, and there's always more to learn. Such a complicated business. We can't be experts in every aspect of it, and I think the more we continue to be open to learning and engaging and, being honest about what the process is and how we can help each other, I think the better it's going to go. So hopefully you have a very successful relationship as writer and executive, and these might be some little tips or tricks that help it make it that much better. So thanks so much for listening.